So Pixar's latest movie, Elio, is now out in theaters. If you've, been living under a rock, you probably wouldn't know that. But we're here to rank all 29, I think, Pixar movies from the worst to the best. We're going to do it tier list style. So if you want to go check out, I do have another Pixar ranking on this list. So if you want to see, maybe my thoughts have changed since then and kind of what's changed. So if you are new here, subscribe, do whatever you got to do, hit the bell icon just so you don't miss any other rankings or reviews, anything like that. You stay up to date with your latest movie news. Let's start this ranking. So the first one we have up here is Toy Story. Now, obviously, this is the one that kicked it all off. The first, and I could be wrong about this, but this is the first computer-generated, animated movie ever. Which is why, it does show its age a little bit, but I think it's still very good. And I think that it genuinely belongs, in A tier, maybe at the back of A tier, but we'll get to that point when we get to it. It's a really solid movie about friendship and being, replaced, and Toy Story 4 is horrible. And I know a lot of people have this argument where they're like, well, Woody, that was his ending. No, Woody's place is with his friends. Just because Woody wasn't Bonnie's favorite toy doesn't mean that Woody needs the proper send-off. They all were collectively together. This movie, I really don't like it at all. It bothers me that they made it, and now there's Toy Story 5 on the way, and it's just I'm trying to find it in myself to not hate it immediately. Yeah. Now, Toy Story 2 is a completely different story because they introduced Jesse. This is Andy starting to grow up a little bit, and we start seeing him when Woody his Stitch comes out and everything, he gets worried about being replaced. This is above the original. Could even go to S tier if you convince me enough, but definitely A tier without a doubt. Above the first. And then Toy Story 3 is easily S tier. It's the culmination of the Toy Story movies, and it's fantastic. It offers, the exact end result of what everyone's asking themselves. What happens when Andy gets too old to play with his toys? This movie answers that question and gives you the perfect ending. The perfect ending to, do we go to a daycare? Do we go to, what happens? And when he ends up giving them to Bonnie, and there's also nothing wrong with the toys going to daycare. It's just about finding what fits you. It's a great movie. Next up, we have A Bug's Life. Now, I know this is a classic. I know a lot of people love this movie. I am not one of those people. I actually think that this movie is quite boring compared to its competitor counterpart, which would be Ants from DreamWorks. I'm not a big fan of this. It's not the worst that Pixar has to offer, but it's not some of the best either. Next up, we have Monsters, Inc. Now, I know I'm probably going to upset a lot of people with this ranking, and let me be very clear. We're ranking the movies here, not the characters. Not the characters, right? So, I love Mike and Sully. In fact, I love Monsters University more. But Monsters, Inc., for me, is a good C-tier movie. It's right in the middle. I don't love it. I'm not in love with the movie. It's very nostalgic, but for me, nostalgia doesn't necessarily mean it's the best. Does that make sense? Just, because of the time it was made. I love the original concept, and it gets bonus points for that. But and all the Boo stuff, the emotion's great there. But some of the in-between stuff kind of gets a little boring at some moments. Now, completely opposite from that, I have Monsters University. I would put Monsters University in B tier. I quite like Monsters University and seeing, Mike and Sully develop that friendship. Mike, the guy who is expected all of these things and doesn't really know what he's doing. That's Sully. And Mike is, this guy who knows everything, but is claimed to be not scary, and he wants it more. I love the story that they tell in this movie of these two friends and how they kind of play off each other, and how Sully doesn't think Mike is scary, so he rigs the machine and all this stuff. I think it's a great story. Finding Nemo. This is my second favorite Pixar movie of all time. I just think it works for almost everything. I think kids can enjoy it, but I think this movie speaks to a lot of dads who just care for their children. It's about that love that a parent has for their child and what they would do. I mean, you literally have a clownfish, one of the smallest fish in the entire ocean, travels across with no hesitation to find his son Nemo, and meets all sorts of unlikely surprises throughout. And I just think between that, visually, it's probably one of Pixar's most early on visually good looking movies. Now, Finding Dory, I have been a little more critical of in the past, but I've recently rewatched this movie, and I feel like I might go higher with it now, just based off of rewatch and stuff. Now, originally my biggest criticism was oh, well, Finding Dory doesn't really include Nemo and Marlin that much in the main plot. It's mostly just Dory. Whereas Finding Nemo does include Dory with her forgetfulness and needing her and everything to be able to read, right? I still like Finding Dory, and I think the themes of this movie offer it to make a very good sequel. I will put it there for now. It could move, but that's how I feel about it. Next up, I have The Incredibles. For me, it goes right there. I absolutely adore The Incredibles. If you guys have ever heard the comparisons between this movie and the Fantastic Four and how it's a family thing, and even some of the powers are very similar, right? I just love The Incredibles. I love the whole concept behind it. I love that it takes place in the 60s, which is a funny note because up until I was 12, I didn't even know that movie took place in the 60s. My brain didn't register that. And next up we have The Incredibles 2, which is a fantastic sequel that gets way too much hate. Way too much hate. I am a big Incredibles 2 defender. So much, in fact, that I genuinely think it belongs in A tier. It's very good. I genuinely love watching The Incredibles 2. I think visually it looks good. I like this, I've always liked the whole trope of do superheroes do more harm than good, or, do we need them? Do they keep us weak? That whole argument that the screenslaver has in this movie is a very good one. And I gotta be honest with myself. I'm a sucker for a villain with a good point, that has a good point to prove and doesn't just have I'm a villain, so I'm a bad guy. That's why I love the Incredibles movies. Next up, we have the original Cars. Now, if you know anything about me, this is going right up in S tier. It's my favorite Pixar movie, and I know a lot of people have their feelings about it, about why it might not be good. I gotta say, I love the story of the cocky race car who learns that life is more than just being a competitive match between everybody and the glamour and the fame and everything like that. And I love the whole Radiator Springs town and him discovering that and meeting Sally, who used to be this glamorous, sought after car and is still, but doesn't go for that anymore. Doesn't go for the hot rods, right? I don't know. I really love this movie, and it's just a classic favorite of mine. It's got to go in S tier. Next up, I have Cars 2, which is I know this is a big sequel that a lot of people don't like, and I don't think it's the best. I think the most it does for the Cars franchise is kind of continue McQueen's legacy as a race car, and obviously we get all the spy stuff in this movie too, right? It's a fine sequel. I don't hate it as much as a lot of people do. I would actually put it probably at the end of my C tier. And I know that might be high for some people, but I quite enjoy, regardless of, what you feel about the movie, what we get in this, I have a good time with. So can't please everybody. Next up, I have Cars 3, the ending to the Cars trilogy or series, at least for now, right? Because I think they had talked about making a fourth one, but I don't think that's going to come to light. Now, Cars 3 is one of my favorites only because it completes the kind of cycle that we see happen in Cars 1, where we hear about Doc being this really great race car, and then the new ones come right in, and he just can't compete with them anymore. It's not about how bad he wants it. It's just about when time is the thief of the present, or some kind of inspirational quote like that. And that's exactly what happens in this movie. And instead of pushing himself, well, he does, and he ends up crashing. And then he realizes what he must do is exactly what Doc Hudson did with him. And he trains Cruz Ramirez to be the next race car of the new race cars. And I love that story. For me, it's gotta go probably about there. I love it. Next up, I have Ratatouille, one of the most creative Pixar movies, which just kind of always invokes the idea of they can make a movie about anything doing, or anyone doing anything, or anything doing anything. And this is the ultimate movie. We have a rat that cooks by pulling on Linguini's hairs on his head. A man who can't cook to save his life and ends up like opening their own, or reopening the Gusteau's restaurant, giving it a better brand. I love this movie, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into this between the music, and it feels like a more, I don't want to say like mature Pixar movie, but it just feels like more serious, and I kind of like that. So for me, it's probably gonna go about there, because it's really good. It's a solid movie that I enjoy watching every time. Next up, I have WALL-E, probably one of my favorites, just because of the fact that it takes place in space, and I love that. I love it for that very reason. I love the whole thing of there doesn't need to be a lot of words spoken for something to mean anything, and the fact that, you know, the way these two kind of work at things, and are we, you know, becoming too automated by technology, that whole thing. There's a lot of dark undertones in this movie with a very like light, fun-hearted, like two robots falling in love. And it's just, I love it. I love it so much. So it's got to go up in S tier for me. Next I have Up. Now, the beginning of this movie is fantastic. Probably the best opening scene in a Pixar movie, and maybe even of any movie ever. It instantly hits you with, you know, sadness and just what it means to have a life, what makes life worth living, right? Especially when you get to that ending of the movie. Now, the full movie is fantastic. I still love the whole movie, but there are moments where I'm like, you know, maybe this could have been better, maybe this could have been better, but it's still a very solid movie that I feel like deserves its place in A tier. Next up, we have Brave. Now, this is probably my girlfriend's favorite Pixar movie, at least one of her favorites. Now, this is a Pixar movie to me that doesn't feel like Pixar. It definitely feels like a Disney animated movie, and yes, there is a difference. I do enjoy it. I don't hate it. I do need to rewatch it as well. I just don't feel the Pixar magic here, and that is a big factor, believe it or not, when it comes to ranking these movies. I do think it's solid, but I just think it lacks the Pixar charm. So for me, I would probably put it right about there in C tier. Right about there. Next up, we have Inside Out, one of my favorite Pixar movies that has a scene, the scene when Riley comes home after, you know, trying to run away on the bus, and she has that change of heart where she comes home and she cries to her parents and talks to them about how she's not okay with everything. That whole scene breaks me down every single time. I become teary-eyed. I cry every single time I see that scene. And I just like the take on different emotions and how it's okay to not be okay. And, you know, being sad is what makes being happy so fulfilling. Because if we were happy all the time, there would be no meaning to it, right? So, I don't know. Inside Out is just one of those movies that carries with me. And I think I would put it about there. Yeah. The next one we have is Inside Out 2. Now this is I know this did really well on my channel specifically, but I also know that this movie was extremely popular, was one of the better selling animated movies, I think, of last year. I want to say it was last year. And for good reason. I know a lot of people connect with the idea of anxiety as a character, and then you have embarrassment, envy, and then there's the purple one as well. I forget what their name is. But it's a very solid movie, a very solid follow-up to Inside Out. I don't connect with it as much as the original, but it's still a solid follow-up. And I think I would probably put it about there for me. Next up, we have The Good Dinosaur. Now, I'll be quite honest. I like the idea of this movie in theory, but I really don't have much else to say than it just feels bland, and it feels like it has no character. It feels like they, you know, had an idea like, okay, this is gonna be the plot, but then they couldn't figure out how to make you emotionally connect with those characters. And what you get is a movie that has a plot and it moves forward to, you know, doing what it needs to do to get to the end, but has no almost substance in between it. And that's exactly how it feels to watch The Good Dinosaur. For me, that puts it at the bottom of the bottom. Next up, we have Coco, one of my favorite Disney Pixar movies with possibly one of the best soundtracks in all of Pixar. Every time I'm like walking around the house or I'm thinking about a Disney movie, a lot of times it's a song from Coco. This movie also has one of the better twists of any of the Pixar movies with Ernesto de la Cruz and Hector and that whole spiel. it's a really solid twist that really incorporates into Miguel's story. The fact that we're getting a sequel to this, I just hope that it can maybe live up to maybe a spectacle of what the original was. For me, personally, this would go in S tier as well. And I think that might be our S tier movies up there. Next up, we have Onward. Now, I know a lot of people really like this movie, and I think I sometimes am a little too harsh on it. Now, I love the fact that they, you know, kind of get to use magic in this movie, and I think it's a very cool thing of like, you know, what if a mystical world was also happened to our world where it gets like overrun by convenience, right? That's like the whole thing here, and they bring back their dad for the day, and it's a very, you know, it's a very sweet and kind of sad movie about two brothers trying to kind of like not compete for their father's attention, but they live two different times, kind of experiencing different relationships with their father, one really never having met their father. For that, it offers a lot of different stuff in terms of emotions, but I think overall it's a solid movie, and I would put it in B tier. I don't hate it. I'm not like in love with it, but it's a solid movie. Next up, I have Soul. Now, I'm not the biggest Soul fan, and there's a couple reasons why. I love the concept. Let me say that. I like the concept at first, but what they do is they focus way too much on Joe and the cat. I think it's Soul number like 22, or it has a certain number, right? And they switch bodies because she's like him and then he takes the place of the cat. That's what I don't like about this movie, is that, you know, you get this kind of like, let's switch bodies, when I wish it was more of just like a exploration of the great before. Because that's like the whole interesting part to me, is the great before. And we do go back and forth. I don't know, the whole cat switching like thing, it doesn't really work for me. And it kind of brings the movie down for me, but I still enjoy it for the most part. For me, I would probably put it about there in C tier. Next up, we have Luca, one of the more surprising movies and better visually looking movies of the entire Pixar series. This movie, it's just a movie about friendship. At the end of the day, it's a movie about friendship. It's a movie about, you know, what you look like doesn't define you. And it's kind of like the whole Monsters Inc. thing, right? Like what you look like doesn't necessarily define you. I love the whole like Vespa dream thing, and they don't even know like what they're talking about mostly. It's a great fun film. I always have a good time with it. And I would not be afraid to say that I would have it in like A tier at the end of my A tier. It's a solid movie. I love it. So next up, we have Turning Red. Now, I'm not a big fan of this movie at all. I kind of liked it when I first saw it, but after a couple rewatches, I just don't stick with it. I don't know what was going on. Maybe it was just that recency bias of wanting to like the new film. But I've watched this movie a couple times, around 3 times now. And the themes of like the living up to the standards of what your parents want you to be is a good message. And I do like that part of it. It just feels a little like, it kind of gives me a headache, if I'm being quite honest. It's a lot of just like weird stuff going on, and maybe that's for you, and I like weird, but it's just too much for me personally. That's how I feel about it. It would probably go behind Toy Story 4. Next up, we have Lightyear. Now, when this movie first came out, I thought it was the coolest thing since like, I don't know, like air fryers. Now they make a lot of choices in this movie where it doesn't make Lightyear or Buzz seem nearly as like up in the star. Like he's he seems more human and grounded. When I first saw Lightyear, I enjoyed it a lot actually. But upon some other rewatches, I don't hate it. It's kind of like middle to lower bottom for me. It just kind of like feels like it's playing on the background and not really much is going on until you get to like that third act with the big twist and everything. That's what it feels like. It feels like just a fill out the runtime kind of movie. And that's the best way I can describe it. For me, it would probably be about, if I can get it there, about there. Next up, we have the final 2. We have Elemental. Now, I love the concept of Elemental. I think, you know, having different elements interacting and having a whole city and world based off of that fact is pretty cool. I've never ceased to be amazed by Pixar's creativity in these projects. That said, I do think it could have gotten a little bit more, like, had more fun little, like, bits and stuff with this movie, but I'm happy with what it is. I think it's a fine movie. I have a lot of fun with it. Kind of like a little higher than like middle, but not by much. I would probably put it about there. It's a solid movie. And next up we have Elio, Pixar's newest movie. One of the funniest Pixar movies, at least in my opinion. My new favorite character, Glorden, the little slug alien looking dude. He's hilarious. I love his jokes. And I'm a big space guy, which is another reason why I love WALL-E so much. But as it stands right now, it's a solid entry in the Pixar way. It makes me feel like I'm at home with Pixar. And especially in the last 30 minutes, it really gets the waterworks flowing. A lot. And it really just, it hits you with that sense of, do I belong here? Do I belong there? And you know, what is so special about me that something else couldn't replicate? It's a very, I love those kinds of questions, and this movie gives us some answers to those. So for me personally, it comes in right about there. Right about there. So there you guys have it. That is my Pixar ranking. Let me know what yours is down in the comments. You know, do you agree with my list? You don't have to agree with my list. It is just my list. Let me know what you guys think. You know, what is your reasoning behind your list? What is just your favorite Pixar movie that, you know, maybe is not everyone's favorite? Maybe yours is Luca for some reason, and you have your reasons. I'd love to know all that down in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video, Colonels. Peace.